Mike has been the owner and president of the Growth Coach of Northern Virginia since June of 2015. His services include strategic planning, business development, and sales training. He works with small businesses, corporations, executives, and sales teams. His diverse background includes 20 years at the Coca-Cola Company, 6 years at Mobil Chemical, which is now Exxon Mobil, and 6 years as an officer in the U.S. Army. Mike's passion is helping small businesses and being a positive influence in his community. Hey, Mike, it's great to be with you today. I'm really looking forward to this interview.
Me too. It's been a while. I'm glad to have a little bit of time to sit down and talk with you.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's just jump right into it, Mike. I got so many questions to ask you today because you've been in the coaching world for a while. I know you've seen ups and downs, and we just love to learn from you today. So I want to go back to your time at the Coca-Cola Company. In the introduction, I said that you'd been there for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So you had a successful career going there. What made you leave to enter into the world of coaching?
Well, I always admired business owners. I always admired business. And so wanted to get into business. And I thought that when I look back at all the things I've done in my life, the common thread was teaching, coaching, and developing. And so I did that in the military. I did that at Exxon Mobil, Mobil Chemical, and I did that also at Coca-Cola. And so it was a natural, for me, I feel that it was a natural progression to go at that on my own. I had been doing that all along, and I decided to go at it on my own. And so I started looking at opportunities to do that. The Growth Coach, you're pretty familiar with it. It's a franchise. And so there's some turnkey stuff, but they allow you to do some things on your own as well. So I like that premise. And so I jumped into coaching, and I would say I probably jumped in, and, and here it is about 5.5 years later, but I enjoy it.
That's wonderful. Yeah. We share that common history with the Growth Coach. That's where Mike and I first met. That's how I started in the world of coaching too. So we have some parallels in our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've been in coaching now for 5.5 years, as you said. Looking back on your first year, what would you do differently if you could relive that first year in coaching again?
Man, oh man. So going into it, I called probably 10 different coaches within the Growth Coach. And I asked a lot of questions, and it's pretty interesting because, I called you and you were pretty forward about, what to expect, but there were very few folks that really were forthcoming. In other words, and I get it now, because I'm sure some of them, they don't want to say anything about the Growth Coach specifically, and, somebody coming in. But I guess looking back for me, I would say I would have spent 2 to 3 days with 2 or 3 coaches. I called a lot of people. I got some good feedback. I got some folks that gave me the real deal of what to expect. But I think if I would have spent, if I would have flown out to California and spent a half a day with you, or if I would have flown down to North Carolina, or, just a couple of coaches that were willing and actually saw it in action first, it would have given me a little more of a jump start, number one. And then I guess number two, and really the biggest thing is, over forecasting, because people tell you, hey, you probably need some runway money. You should probably figure on 18 months, 2 years. I'm a fast learner. I'm pretty good at what I do. I can cut that in half, right? And,
right.
When you start looking at forecasting, I consider myself better than average. So I'm probably going to sell more than most of those guys that started out, or those ladies. So I'll probably be, 6-8 months in, I'll probably be hitting all my targets and doing all of that. So definitely overshot, a little overzealous in what I thought the first year was going to be in terms of sales and revenue and accounts. definitely that. And like I said, spending a little time with some of the coaches and just watching them in action would have helped.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't do that myself either, and that seems like really good advice actually, to spend some time with coaches, seeing what they actually do and how they spend their days. What is your greatest enjoyment with coaching? Like, what do you enjoy most?
For me, I think, Michael, it's going to be the light bulb, when the light bulb goes off.
Mm.
You're working with people. My very first client was an architect, and he was very excited. Man, I broke off from my firm 5 years ago. I know that I want to do certain things. I'm not quite sure how to get there, and I'm not as organized as I should be. I know I'm not where I should be, but I think you can help me. And so we had that initial conversation. We do some, a strategy session, business planning. We start outlining where we want to go, what we want to do. And, 6, 8 months down the road, he's up 20% in his business. He hires an assistant. A few more months down the road, he hires another architect. And
Wow.
and then we had this conversation. He says, "Hey, Mike, looking at next year, I'm thinking about another market, and I want to move my office there because it looks like the metro's going that way. Everything seems to be going that way. When I look at my revenue, I'm here. I've already started looking at rental places. I know I've got to grow my business this percent to be able to move, and then I'm going to move." And when I got off the phone with him, I mean, I felt like I scored a touchdown, man. I'm like, I went from, I don't know where I'm going, I know I need some help, to now I'm thinking about revenue. I'm thinking about how much revenue I'm going to need to get this rental and to move into just the fact that we're going from, I'm not quite sure where I'm at, to thinking strategically was a win for me. I mean, I thought I scored a touchdown, man. I felt so good that the dialogue had started to change, and that's what was exciting to me. So that's that's the thing I enjoy about coaching: watching businesses go from the 0 to 60, from I'm a little bit unorganized, to actually kind of thinking through the steps, prioritizing, and getting into those good habits that I know you know about.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. That's a really good story. And that was right out of the gate. When you look back over the 5.5 years or so, what do you regard as your greatest success story in coaching?
Well, I mean, I've had a lot of them. That is certainly one of them right there.
Yeah.
I hope, in terms of a great success story, that the greatest one is still out there, that I'm still working on that.
Mm.
But I had a plumber that I started with, and he was working out of his basement in his house. And I said, "So what's the plan?" "Well, the plan is, one, get my wife out of the business because she's helping me out, get her out, get me out of the basement, get me into a nice building, and I'd like to expand." And he had, at that time, I think he had 2 trucks. Started working with him, and in about a year's time, he grew to over 20 trucks, moved out of his basement, got himself a
Wow.
building. His wife helps a little, but it's one of those deals where she's not there every day. She's not working there every day. And we went from just he and I working on some things with the business, to I did some things with his technicians, the plumbers. They call them technicians. Working with the technicians from a customer service standpoint, from a
Mhm.
selling standpoint, working with them. And I'm pretty proud of that. I mean, I like the idea of going from a couple of trucks to a bunch, and I like the idea of, from a cash flow revenue, to now he's got more of a people management, operational. Those are the conversations that we had. And so that's one I'm pretty proud of. I worked with an IT company that started with 6 people, and they've got over 65 people now, and he's working with the government. And it was one of those deals where, it's an unfair system. I'm trying to break my way into the government. The government kind of does their bids based on who they want to work with. Well, now he's the guy they want to work with, and they're doing the bids towards him, and so the tide has turned, but he's doing a lot of great things in the community and doing a lot for his employees. But I'm pretty proud of that too, doing some team building with his team and some business development there. So those are just a couple that I feel good about. But anytime that somebody needs help and I can help solve some problems for them and help work with them, I feel good about that.
Yeah, I would say those are some fantastic stories, Mike. I am impressed by hearing about those, and just the picture of the man moving out of the basement and moving into a building, and becoming more legitimate, right? I mean, it's not like he wasn't actually fixing plumbing problems for people, but it just doesn't seem like a real legitimate business running it out of your basement. So.
Yeah, you got plumbing trucks parked in front of your house. I'm sure the neighbors love that, and
right.
But he got himself up and running, and it, like you said, yeah, it's a great success story.
Yeah, that's terrific. Now, based on your long sales background, you're probably better than average at selling coaching. What are your best tips for coaches who want to improve their ability to sell themselves as a coach, or selling the idea of coaching?
Well, you and I have talked about this a little bit, and I know, I think you feel a little bit the same way, but I feel like coaches, first of all, they need to know themselves really well. What do you know? What are you good at? What are you not so good at? So I would say definitely learning a little bit about yourself, whether that means, taking a disc, Myers-Briggs, whatever that is. But then the other thing, be genuine, listen well, and really work to solve problems. Instead of trying to sell people on things, be a problem solver, be a solution, support people. But the other thing is, we have a lot of coaches in this industry that really don't know how to sell. And so the number one thing would be you need to learn how to sell. So if you've never taken a course, if you've never taken a book, or you've never read a book, my biggest tip would be read the book, go through some sales training so you understand what it is. Because you'll hear a lot of coaches say, well, I don't do a lot of sales training because I'm not good in sales. Well, I think if you're a coach, you want to be an influencer, you want to have that skill. But you and I also know that it's a different kind of sell. You don't want to talk people into coaching because you want them to want it. So right. How do you do that as a salesperson? And so that's why I think that training is something that's very important. So, it's great that you've been in business your whole life and now you're going to help business owners, or you've been in academia and you've been teaching sales and you jump in, but you need to know something about, the art and the science of selling, and to be able to do that in a way that you're solving problems and you're being a help, you're being consultative, you're not looking for that transactional sale. So I think that would be the biggest thing. But definitely be a problem solver, learn a little bit about yourself and what you're good at, what you're not good at, shore up what you're not good at. But definitely, if you don't have a background in sales, you need to get some training.
Oh man, there's so much good advice there, Mike. Thank you, because I do believe that oftentimes, as you mentioned, that people with a long background in corporate, a successful career in academia, healthcare, what have you, they know they can help other people to be successful. Yep. And by learning how to coach, then you learn how to draw those solutions out of other people. But if you can't ever sell the coaching, then you can't do what you would really love to do, which is have those light bulb moments like we talked about a little bit ago.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So investing in a little bit of sales training, reading some books is real good advice. Yeah. And knowing yourself. So thank you for that. The next question is related to thought leadership. Know that not only do you need to learn how to sell yourself as a coach, but you need to also learn how to distinguish yourself as a coach and separate yourself. There are many, many coaches entering the profession every year, and it's becoming more and more competitive. How do you establish yourself as a thought leader in coaching? What have you found to be effective?
Well, I think it kind of goes hand in hand with building your brand, and so you really do want to brand yourself as the go-to person. You want to brand yourself as the expert. So how do you do that? Well, you want to do some blogs. You're going to probably write about some things that you know about, or some things that you want business owners to think about. So for me, I do some blogging. I'll post some things sometimes weekly, for sure, monthly. Newsletters are not bad. I know that a lot of people feel like, well, that's kind of old school, but if you're putting something out there that can benefit somebody, and you can do that on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, you should do that. For me, I use video. I know you use a lot of video too, and so you can use video a couple of different ways. You can provide tips to people. What's going on like now, typically between August and October, it's time to start thinking about the next year. So start thinking about your vision and your mission for next year. So putting that out there. I like to interview other business owners to pick their brain a little bit, what's going on with them and what kind of problems are they up against, and put that out there so that other business owners realize that it's not just them, that we all go through highs and lows. We all win and we all sometimes lose. So doing those kinds of things, and again, contributing to the community as well. There are a lot of things that you can do locally, whether you're talking about just basic community service, whether you're talking about chambers of commerce, whether you're talking about other organizations where you can lend yourself, whether it's working with teams, whether it's just in general strategic planning, providing assessments of organizations. And I'm not saying you have to do everything for free, but when you do put yourself out there, you are working or doing a work in the community, and you're providing resources. And so I think it's important to do that. If you do those things, then people will say, well, wow, Mike is doing these things. If I paid him, what would I get from him if I paid him? Maybe I'd get threefold, and so I think it comes back at you when you give to the community gives back. So.
Right. So I feel like that was actually an answer to two questions. One was being a thought leader, with the blogging, doing videos, doing presentations, newsletter, blog, and articles, and so forth. But also a secondary question, which is how do you market yourself? How do you make yourself visible?
Right.
And you've shared some ideas around that as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important for thought leaders. I think it's important for leaders to give back and to do some things in the community. And if we're not going to do it as leaders, who do we think should do it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. A few years ago, I felt this strong calling to start giving back more, and doing that in my life. And recently, I joined the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And
Wow.
I'm a milestone coach where I provide pro bono coaching to a startup founder for a 12-week sprint. And it's fun. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. That it's not about the money. When you're coaching somebody who's starting up a business, and they're serious about growth, and it ain't about the money, but it's about helping them to achieve a milestone. And it's terrific. It's been a real reward for me.
Anybody who's been in this business knows it's not about the money. If you're in it, if you're truly in it, because you and I know that there are a lot of coaches out there that are not making a ton of money, but are you creating value, and are you doing what you want to do in life?
Exactly. Yeah, I would do this if money was not involved. I'd still want to do it. That's what gets me up on Monday morning, is the joy of the work, not the joy of cashing the check. Although that feels good too.
Yeah, it's nice when a check clears.
Of course, of course. Yeah, it's nice to get paid to do what you love, right, Mike?
That's right.
Yeah, that's
right.
great.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So I got one more question for you. So
Okay.
one of the reasons that I entered into the world of coaching is because I knew that it would push me to stay on the edge of learning and growing. that I would constantly want to improve myself in order to be the best version of myself for my clients.
Sure.
How do you stay on that path of learning and growing?
That's a really good question, Michael. One would be training. I think that ongoing training is important. For me, this year I've done some additional team building training, some performance management stuff, and definitely in the midst of this pandemic, Zoom training. Because this time last year I did like zero Zoom, and so I've had to learn how to do that. But now it's to a point where, hey, I'm probably going to do Zoom all the time. So continuous training, I think, is definitely important, whether it's Zoom or, something within your field. Definitely want to do that. Books are important. I know that you're an avid reader. I should probably do more of that. I don't do as much as I probably should, but I'm still a big believer in books. I'm pretty old school, so I still, I'll go back to the 7 Habits. I'll go back to Think and Grow Rich. I'll go back to some of the books, Dale Carnegie, and I don't know that there's a lot new. I know that we want to read to get things fresh, but I think a lot of those things that those guys talk about, being proactive versus reactive, win-win, that stuff that's not really going to change.
Mike, this has been a real pleasure. I've known you for many years. I've enjoyed being a peer of yours in the coaching world, and now having this opportunity to pick your brain, talk to you about coaching and your head for coaching, some of the successes you've had and the tips that you have. We've learned a lot. I just want to thank you very much for being with us today, Mike.
Thanks for having me. I certainly enjoyed it as well. I wish you the absolute best. I thank you for having me on. And I really just appreciate the opportunity. It's been fun.
Absolutely. It's been fun for me too. Continued success to you too, Mike. Thank you.
You too. Thanks.